Hi, and very welcome to our session about NSO Upgrade and Migration. My name is Nils Tisell, work as an NSO product manager. I'll talk a little bit what's happened lately of NSO. With me, I have my colleague Martin Akerstrom. We'll share some of experience we've done with doing NSO upgrades with various customer projects. And last but not least, we have Ahmed Hashem with us from a CX delivery, who will present and talk about how we can help out for you who would like to have help in the migration projects. So now you know what's coming up. First, I would like to talk about the tremendous development of NSO over the last few years. So bear in mind, when we talk about NSO and what's actually happening, we have 4 pillars there: scalability, observability, usability, and interoperability. And where we are now with NSO, and growing within the 5X series of NSO, we have customers that manage up to 100,000 devices with 500,000 instances of services. This being possible by the continuous evolvement of NSO platform. At the same time, when we talk about interoperability, our net catalog has grown now to more than 140 different device integrations for proprietary device management interfaces. And for those of you who are going for standardized netconf YUng management of the devices, we have our netconf YUng automation testing program that's open for everyone, every device vendor around the globe to actually be interoperable with the latest standards in netconf YUng managed by NSO. Last but not least, I also would like to stress your peers, your friends out of the DevNet community, where you will also find this kind of presentations, tutorials, as well as the NSO technical reference documentation. So that being said, I would like to stress one more thing before I hand over to Martin, and that's about our new NSO release lifecycle. So for those of you who've been using NSO for a while, you know that we have a release cycle where we end our software maintenance after 24 months. That really means that that's the point when we stop to actually do bug fixes and also net enhancements. We're changing that because we have a large part of our customer base that would like to have a longer lifetime. When you build your platform that actually spans over various parts of the network, and then you have a more stable environment. So there we will actually have long-lived releases, which have an end of software maintenance at 36 months, and actually it's up to 60 months of support. And for those of you who would like to capture the latest and greatest of all our new features coming up, there will be a short-lived release with an end of software maintenance of 18 months, but also gives you opportunity to more quickly adopt new features. This one will start with NSO 5.7, scheduled for November timeframe this year, where we actually start with the long-lived releases, and then the consecutive 2 next releases will be short-lived releases, and then we're back to long-lived releases. So that's our future cadence of our release life cycle. So that's something that you really should consider when you plan your upgrade cycles for NSO going forward. So with that, I hand over to you, Martin, to talk about your experience with your customer engagements.
Hi everyone, so my name is Martin Akerstrom. I'm part of the NSO CTO team. I have, for the last couple of years, worked quite a lot with the customers and also the migration to NSO 5. If you've seen me in the previous Dev Days talks, you've seen me talk about how the migration should be performed and all the technical aspects of it. Today I will talk more about after the migration and what customers are experiencing while on NSO 5 and what good things they have seen so far. So I talked to or I asked a bunch of different customers to give me some of the nice things that they've seen in NSO 5 and things they need. And I will summarize some of them. So to start with, we can start with the maybe more obvious things that, of course, it's always nice to be on the latest version. Being on the latest version means you also have support for the latest net versions, and you can make sure that you don't miss out on any of the enhancements that you have with the latest nets. One customer also was stressing the importance of the latest enhancements in respect to plan states and commit queues, because they were evolving their services to utilize commit queues much more. And one other kind of a big thing for one customer were the improvements in LSA. So we have today quite a lot of different customers using LSA for different reasons, sometimes for memory sharing, sometimes for doing domain separations and things like that. And before NSO 5, this could be a bit more hard, because we had no way of reading configuration from the bottom level devices that we had in our LSA cluster. So your top level node can only know the services, but knew nothing about the RFS devices themselves. And we also want to have things like subscribing to notifications and events happening on the RFS nodes. So this was quite a big thing that they were asking for. And they were also looking a lot at multi-version LSA deployment. So today with NSO 5, we can actually have a multi-version deployment as long as we have our CFS, our top-level node, at the most recent version. So this gives us quite a lot of different advantages, like we don't need to upgrade the whole LSA cluster in one go. We can let the different domains evolve at their own rate, and it will be not depending on every department, every domain upgrading at the same time. So, I mean, this will reduce, of course, the time used in service windows and such, and also the development effort between the different domains. This was possible due to one of the major changes in NSO, which is called the common data model. The common data model is basically solving a problem of being unable to load backwards incompatible models. Previous to NSO 5, we can only load one version of a specific model. And if we have multiple devices trying to implement the same model, only the latest one would be used, or at least only one of them would be used. So if there were incompatible changes between those models, that would, of course, have a big impact on the system itself. So NSO solves this with a method called Yang schema mount. So Yang schema mount is described in its own RFC. It's RFC 8528, and that puts each model mounted completely separated from each other, so that we can have multiple versions of the same model in the system. I'm not going to go too deep into this, but this will explain why we could make this enhancement in LSA, and it also explains why we now can have multiple NEDs of different versions in the system, which is also something that some customers have asked for. It's kind of a big change. Let's say you have a system today with multiple devices with different operating systems, which are not backwards compatible to each other. Then we need different models. We need different NED packages to support and read the config from all those different devices. And this is also one of the things that is possible today when we have the common data model and we have support for multiple NED versions. And multiple NED versions gives us another nifty thing in NSO 5, which is the NED migration. NED migration means that we can have a much more controlled way of moving from one version of a NED to another version. So if we have a version scheme like this, that as long as you're on release 5.8 and you want to upgrade your NED to 5.8.1, 5.8.2, that means also that there's completely compatible changes between those versions. That will be a regular package upgrade as you have done before. Drop your NED package in the folder, do a package reload, and off you go. But if there are incompatible changes happening, we also bump the version number. So let's say we bump it to 5.9. In that process also, while moving from 5.8 to 5.9, we will do a NED migration, which will help us seeing what has happened internally in the system, what model changes do we have, and will this impact anything? We have a tool for that in the CLI, which is the migrate action that we have on devices. So using this migrate action with different flags like verbose and dry run, we can investigate and see what will happen in the system when we do a migration from one version to another. We can see what path in the model that has changed. Has a leaf got a new type, or maybe something is deleted or moved to a container or anything like that. And we get also to see which services are affected by these changes. Maybe there are no services affected, then we are good to go and just do the migration. Or maybe there are a couple of services affected, then we also need to investigate those services and make sure that they are updated so we don't break the system in any way. The good thing with that migration is that it doesn't require NSO to enter upgrade mode. It doesn't affect any of the devices out on the network. You basically can do a migration outside of a service window. There's no need to have a service window if you don't affect anything, more or less. And you can also do it in a lazy way. So you can decide that I only want to migrate one device, or maybe a group of devices that are connected to the device itself that has a new version, or maybe you want to do all with a matching net identity. So we can choose which devices, when we do them, and in a much more controlled fashion. This is some of the features and experience of customers that we have received good feedback from. In the end, I mean, it's been a journey to reach this stage. Of course, there are as many things or requirements as there are NSO installations. So I'm not able to talk about everything that customers have experienced. And of course, there are a multitude of other features and fixes in NSO also that could be looked into. Yeah, and that's all for my session. And now over to Ahmed to talk about CX engagement.
Thank you, Martin. I would like to share with you some information about if you need help regarding NSO upgrade. So most of the NSO deployments fall into one of these categories. The first category is the straightforward upgrade, where you have NSO only, no LSA, you are deploying simple services or even stacked or complex service models. The second category, where if you have an integrated environment and you want to do a multi-step upgrade or multiple upgrades. So if you have LSA setup where you have multi-version, so you need to upgrade, you can upgrade each node separately. You can have NSO, and on top of NSO, a northbound workflow engine like Cisco BPA or iTential or Cisco Matrix, or even have a custom portal. For that, we identify the upgrade path for NSO and the northbound system and do it step by step. The third category, if you have a large volume of devices and services with or without LSA setup, for example, if you have more than 400,000 NSO services, this needs to be done in iterative way, and this should cover service migration, device migration, and could be take multiple iterations to do the full upgrade. The last one, if you have high dependency, for example, if you have an OSS or PSS system integrated with NSO, we have to identify the upgrade path as well, and we could have multi-step upgrade to be able to align with the northbound system. We call it high dependency because you need to upgrade the northbound system in alignment with the NSO upgrade. Our approach is test-driven NSO upgrade, and it has some benefits. So basically, we are using our experience because we did the upgrade with many customers for most of the versions, and we have a defined method to do the NSO upgrade, including working with third-party applications. We are following the CI/CD driven approach, which include building simulators for third-party systems as well to make sure that when we do the upgrade, NSO works end-to-end. And also we do test automation to make sure that the services deployed to NSO before and after the upgrade are working as expected, and we reach to high percentage of test coverage. And finally, this process could be extended to support end-to-end test automation and to do service migration as well. To go deeper into the process, we start by project onboarding, like understanding the NSO package, your deployment, building the CI/CD tool set, and then start working on the lab build, which inclusive of building the Jenkins pipeline, using SonarQube to do the static code analysis and code quality, building NSO containers for the target versions, which will be used in the CI/CD and the continuous build, and building NetSim devices to simulate your environment. And also, if you have a third-party application, we build simulators to cover the end-to-end lifecycle. The next step is to use one of our CXC accelerators, which we call it UPOT. UPOT is a test automation platform which can help you to quickly build test automation for all of your NSO services, and can be extended to have an end-to-end test automation as well. It will increase the test coverage significantly. Even if you have an existing test automation, this will increase the test coverage. After that, we'll start doing the actual upgrade in the lab by upgrading Python and Java version if required, upgrading the NSO version, upgrading the nets, and migrating the devices. And this will be repeated if you have LSA or high availability or multi-NSO environment. This will be repeated for every single node. Then we'll start the process of upgrading the NSO service packages as well, your NSO services. So this could be one service, could be 100 service. So it's an iterative approach for every single service, starting with the automation of the build and running the test cases. Expected to fail in the beginning. So we start doing a code analysis, which could be done partially using automation and code review as well. And then our developers start updating the NSO service models, updating the Python and Java code if required, and revalidating the service, and do the cycle again to do build and run the test automation. And this process will continue until we get a successful build and all services for this particular package are validated successfully. Then we can start doing the production, the actual deployment to the production system, and doing service instance validation on your NSO production. So that's the process for the test-driven NSO. It will increase the test coverage for your NSO. It will make sure that the upgrade has been successful, and also your NSO services work as expected. If you want to learn more about this test-driven NSO upgrade, you can reach out to us on askcxnso@cisco.com. If you want to learn more specifically about UPOT for test automation, you can reach out to us on upodtechteam@cisco.com. And now I'm going to hand over to Nils.
Thanks, Ahmed. So what's next? Plan to upgrade. We talked about the different tools as well as how to get help. You can reach out at the NSO community at DevNet. There you will also find a lot of NSO documentation as well as tutorials. So don't forget, you can also get help by Ahmed's team, professional services. With that being said, once again, I would like to thank Ahmed and Martin for joining this presentation, and see you all at DevNet.
Hi, my name is Paolo Amendola, and I am a delivery architect in Cisco's CX organization. My main focus area is automation, and today I'd like to draw your attention to the requirements collection phase whenever you want to deploy a new automation use case into the network. Automation can have an impact at the wider organizational level, so it's very important that you bring every stakeholder to the discussion table early in the process in order to get their requirements. For example, integration with other systems like OSS, BSS, inventory systems, or how to integrate automation with existing service delivery processes and tools. We in CX can help facilitate this kind of conversations.
Thank you, team, for explaining why it's important for us to upgrade to more later releases of NSO. I really like the way, Ahmed, when you talk about how upgrade complexity differs among the different complexity of the different systems. It helps understand how hard it can be to do the upgrades. And also, Martin, when you shared about customer experiences going from 4 to 5, that's also very helpful. But when we talk about upgrades and migration, can you please double click and help us clarify the difference between what we mean when we talk about upgrades and migration? So Martin.
Sure. So, or at least when I talk about upgrade and migration, it a little bit depends on the context, but I would say as an NSO NED, for example, I would say an upgrade is moving to the next version number that is still backwards compatible, while as we might migrate to a new NED version that is not backwards compatible, and in those cases we might need help from tooling or migrating data or so, in short.
So Nils Petter, you talk about the 4 different pillars that we base our NSO development on. Which one would you say is most important now short term and that reflect the work we do in NSO?
Yes, and if I really need to select one, I will go for scalability, because that's really where we invest most of our resources right now to grow with our customers, help our customers to actually manage more and more devices in different networks around the globe.
Thank you very much. So let's dive into the QA from the chat. We have a question here about, I think this is directed for Ahmed. How do I plan a smooth upgrade and NSO migration if I'm onboarding NSO now and I'm new to this? Are there guides or checklists that I can use?
The first thing, of course, is try to follow the best practices for NSO services design. That will make the job easier in the future when you are doing the upgrade. And of course, you need to follow the target versions of the prerequisites of NSO. That will guarantee that will reduce the effort of doing the upgrade in the future.
Okay, great. So we have some on the chat. Do you need to have the old NED loaded if you do a NED migration?
Yes, you do. Migrating from one NED to the next one, you need both NEDs loaded in the system, and you can't remove the old NED until all devices using that NED is migrated.
How do you recommend to customers? How often should they upgrade to a new version of NSO? Is that a question for you, Nils Petter, maybe?
I can absolutely answer. So of course, in the best case, you just follow our release cadence, which I talked about earlier on, which is approximately 2 releases per year. That being said, realistically, once a year, have that in your head, and because that also gives you a mindset to actually facilitate all new features and how to actually upgrade according to what Ahmed just described, as well as the tool sets that Martin talked about.
Is there a cost associated with upgrading?
So when we talk about cost here, it's 2 different things here. Of course, the NSO licenses, which are an important part of whatever you do with NSO on the field, and the NSO upgrades as well as NED extensions are always covered by the software subscription licensing model. So that's all covered while you have your NSO subscription in place. And then we have Ahmed, and your team will help out. Maybe you would like to comment.
Yeah, of course. Designing and implementing the upgrade will be a professional service that will have a cost.
I think the final question here is about explaining more about plan and commit queues, and if there is documentation that explains this. And I guess the short answer to this is that, yes, this is well described in the documentation. And I think with that, our time is up, and I'd like to thank you for this great session.